everybody, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Tiffany, and my husband and I are the owners of Creative Designs by Tiffany, a flower shop and event space in upstate New York. While we'll continue to talk about the original flowers and floral arranging, we're expanding to talk about everything I love and nothing that I don't. Thanks for giving a listen. And today we have a very special guest, and we're recording on a Sunday, so it's throwing me off. It's a really special episode for me. So today I am joined by Pete Pagliaro, who we talked about on the last podcast. So need the cheers. I should have cued you for this for
you
cheers.
should have cued me. I can do cheers. Yeah. There they are. Yeah, Pete. Ooh.
It's the biggest cheer I've ever gotten.
It's good. It's good though, right?
Better than a Diamond Dogs crowd.
It is.
It is. It's perfect. So, Pete, we had talked about briefly on the last podcast, he wrote a book.
Yes.
And so it's almost Christmas time. So I said, well, stocking stuffers, we'll get him on so he could talk about it and just give us the whole idea of how you got the book and stuff together. So
yeah, I'm so glad to be here. I know we talked back and forth about
Yes.
getting on, doing this, and it means a lot. It means a lot to have me come on.
Well, it means a lot for you to be here sitting with me because, no offense, Dave. I mean, Dave is, I should mention too, Dave Warner, producer of Tiffany Talk, is here today too.
I'm here somewhere.
He's here. So Dave's here, and I talk to him all the time about you guys and doing stuff with baseball, but then to actually have you here being able to talk about it is very special for me too. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have you here. So a little backstory. People who don't know me or whatever, I had started out with the Diamond Dogs, I think the same year, maybe.
Yeah, it was the same year, I think. Yeah.
Same year that you started, and 11 years you
11
had in the
years ago.
book, so now almost 12 years we've known each other, I would say, so it's been quite a while.
Yeah, I always laugh because the first time I met Tiffany, she was doing a lot of the stuff on the field for us at the Diamond Dogs, and baseball was not her thing. She did not understand the game, and she'd come up to us a couple of times and ask us questions, and we just thought she knew the game but didn't know it that well.
Nope, didn't know it at all.
She didn't know it at all.
Didn't know it at all.
She's asking us what quarter, what quarter it is.
How many yards does that guy have to go to get first base?
Exactly. Are we winning?
Yeah.
Are we not winning?
Wasn't that we had to hit the ball over? Yeah, it was interesting.
Yep.
So
Well, and it screwed me up too because at the time the scoreboard that I had to watch, the runs and the I don't even know runs, errors, whatever those are up there. I thought it was the hits. I think it was the hits.
It was
I used
the
to be
hits.
like,
You thought
oh,
it
we're
was the
winning.
score, yeah.
No, we're not winning. Tiff, you got like 15 hits, but we only have 2 runs. Oh, so we're not winning.
yeah, well, we've taught her, and I think now I can say confidently she's a very big baseball fan.
Yes,
now.
I'm a big baseball fan, but still don't know any stats that you guys run up there.
Okay, that's
or,
okay. It's about enjoying the game, and I think you've learned to definitely enjoy the game.
I think so, yes. And, well, that's what Pete does, too, for the Diamond Dogs. So
Yes.
that's how I met Pete. So Pete and Lou are up in the press box I mentioned up there, know everything about baseball you could ever want to know. So either way, it doesn't surprise me that he wrote a book because he knows everything there is to know about baseball.
I won't go that far. We learned everything we learned about baseball. We learned as kids. Lou and I are good friends, and we still we collect baseball cards. We've done it since we were kids, and we still do it.
So cool.
And everything we've learned about the game, it started from the beginning, reading the back of baseball cards, and it's something that we've always loved to do.
Awesome.
And then I guess we can get right into the story a little bit about because there's more than just a book. It kind of the story of what led me here to Little Falls. I think is an interesting story too.
It is. So get ready, guys. Get your popcorn.
I
great.
I don't know this story.
Yeah,
so
I know.
this
I
is
can
good.
see Dave
Yeah.
leaning in. It's
a pretty good. It's a pretty good story. So,
is.
11 years ago, apparently, because now we're going into our 12th year, and the
Crazy.
years just flew by. Because to say it was 11, 12 years ago, I can't even believe it.
I can't either because I'm only 25. So I was like 10 when I met them. No, I'm kidding.
You pretty much were. I think you were. I really do think you were.
Wait a minute. I was doing the math on that going, no, something's not ringing very true here.
I try. Well, that's, it can't be, once we get into that 10, 15 years, it started when we were 10 anyway.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
Yeah.
No, so it was I think like a cold February day, and Travis, the Diamond Dogs owner, was having his annual Hall of Fame dinner out here.
Yeah.
And he just started the team, so I think it was maybe the first or one of the first. It was either the first or second. And Lou reached out to me and he said, "Hey," he goes, "There's a baseball event going on, like some kind of Hall of Fame dinner out in Little Falls. Do you want to go?" I said, "I've never been to Little Falls. I don't even know how to get there." And he goes, "Yeah, we'll figure it out." I'm like, "All right." He goes, "You drive." I'm like, "Okay." So we, the day comes and it's like,
this is the blind leading the
pretty
blind.
much.
If you know Lou, that sounds exactly
that's
like
exactly
Lou.
it, right?
You drive. I'll go. You drive.
So we hop in the car and it's like a blizzard of all blizzards. It is like, the weather is nasty.
Yep.
And so we said, well, we better get there early because it takes a while to get there. I mean, we're coming from Utica, so about 45 minutes. The weather was bad. We didn't want to miss anything, right? Because
Yeah.
God forbid we miss anything, you know.
Yep.
So we get in the car. I don't know how early we started on the road, right? And we just started driving, and we get to Little Falls, and we get to, I think it was the hotel here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Travelodge.
The Travelodge. So
No, back then it probably was Best Western.
Well, it was Best
It
Western.
might have been
11
Best
years
Western.
ago.
Yeah, it might have been Best
Yep,
Western.
the old Best Western.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we pull into the parking lot, and there's like no cars, and we're like, is this thing canceled? Right? Like, we're like, oh my God. And then we realized how early we were. We probably like at least a good 2 hours early, right?
Oh, jeez.
So we walk into this place, and we're like, hi, we're here for this baseball event. Is it still going on?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it doesn't start for a while, but yeah, someone's here like kind of setting up. So we walk down the hallway, and there's a little table there, and then there's this guy like just running around like a chicken with his head cut off, right?
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, and we're like,
That's Travis.
We know who that is.
and we're like, hi. And he goes, you guys here for the dinner? We're like, yeah. He goes, you're a little early. We're like, yeah, we came from Utica, and and he's like, oh, you guys came all the way from Utica? We're like, yeah. And he goes, do you want to help? We're like, sure. What do you need us to do? Next, and that guy never met us, right? Puts us in charge of like the table that you take like the money. Puts us in charge of like the guest list, and we're like, all right.
Yep.
Yeah, you Utica folks can't trust you, right?
We're like this guy. So he was doing everything. He was the only one here at the time because he started the team, and it was a one man show pretty much.
He was.
Yep.
That was how it started out. And with Pete and Lou coming on, I remember. So the old owner Dave had approached me and said, "Hey, can you do the on field for us? Because we need somebody to do this stuff with the kids." And I said, yeah, sure, whatever. And at that point, it was just this grassroots thing that nobody was helping out. Nobody was volunteering. Nobody knew what the team was about. So thus Travis doing everything from start to finish. Yep. So then when you guys came on and it's locked for 11 years, we've gotten so fortunate over the years because usually it's these interns that come in for a year and that's it. Yep. And you guys, you know what you're doing. Yep. And you did, even coming into it, no training, and you're still here. So
and I have a story to add on to that. You look back 11 years ago, but they had career day at the high school or the middle school here last Friday.
Okay.
And so I gave it's 12 minutes you have for like 15 and 20 kids, and you do that for 4 straight hours, right, with like a minute in between.
Yeah.
I asked, and I had a little clip of the Diamond Dogs. It was part of what I was talking about as far as content creation and video and stuff. And I think out of all the kids that came through there, that might have been 300, there were maybe 5 that didn't know who the Diamond Dogs were. I was totally blown away.
It's
huge.
It's
huge.
I mean, it's really. I mean, you talk about like marketing a team and really making it homegrown.
Oh yeah.
It is the most homegrown thing I've ever been involved with. It's
amazing.
family. It's
It
amazing.
is. It really is. It's like total family. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, and we send out a group text to the originals. I'll say because they're having a few throughout the years. The originals. We still all.
You can't say that
connected.
now with Herkimer Originals.
Oh,
so,
that's true. Well, we're the originals.
We are the true originals.
We're the originals. But the fun thing is that with you guys, and we always talk. Travis and I used to talk about this. There has been a team in Utica, and they chose to drive from Utica to Little Falls for our games.
Yeah, for Lou, it's a 5-minute drive. For me, it's maybe 10 minutes.
Right, to get to Utica. And they still pass
to the games
on.
in Utica.
Yep.
They could be working for Utica is what I'm saying now. And they chose to work for us, which says a lot.
Well, that's the thing.
To
I mean,
the team and,
once we got involved, I mean, and that leads to how we got involved. So we got involved that night. We helped Travis out. We did our thing. And then Travis said after that, he goes, you know what, we got to get together and talk. Because I'm going to need some help and some opportunities, because are you guys interested in, and he said, being a PA guy and being a broadcaster. And I was like, I've never done broadcasting in my life. So I was like, no, I can't do that. And he goes,
you got the voice for it.
It's not that hard. Because Lou already took the PA guy. It was like never a question. He just like, I'll do PA. I'm like, okay. And Travis was like, you can do the broadcasting, right? I'm like, I never did a game before in my life, right? He goes, we'll talk. So we ended up having dinner one night. Just briefly talked about it because it was before the season started, and I didn't really know. He goes, "Yeah, it's at the time I don't think it was online yet. I think we were just doing it. No, it was online.
I think it was online.
Yeah, it was just different.
Yeah, it was. It's evolved over the years.
Right.
It's been.
So I said, sure, we'll figure it out. And then leading up to the first game, obviously I do my homework, right? So I had, when I tell you, a notebook full of stats from every college player,
right?
Because you had to go out and get the stats. I mean, it was never prepared for you,
right?
So it was go out, find out who the kid was, where he played his college ball. From there, you learned a little bit about his high school stuff, if it was online, if it was even on the college website. If it wasn't on there, you really had nothing to talk about with this kid.
Yeah.
So you pulled some stats from the end of the season because the season ended and then we started, so there was really no time. And then I'm like, well, what am I going to do when the other team's at bat? I got to go research them, right?
Right?
So I did the same thing for them. And then I kind of made up some commercials because I'm like, well, Trav, did we have commercials? He goes, no.
I don't know.
And I'm like, what do you mean? I go, we have sponsors, right? He's like, yeah, we have sponsors. He's like, but I just sell the advertising and it's on the thing. He goes, we don't have like commercials. I'm like, well, I'll write something up and I'll figure it out. So I wrote up a couple of things based on websites and stuff like that. And I had it all written out. I'm like, this will be great.
Yep.
This will, I'll have enough. Because I was worried I wouldn't have enough content.
Right.
By the third inning, I think I went through the whole notebook. Right? And I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
Now what do I do? And then slowly I realized, you know what? I'm like, you're watching a baseball game.
Yeah.
It's all it is. You're watching a game. Talk about what you see. Talk to and then it became fun. Then it became, because at first it was really a job. It was hard. It was like, and then I realized, then I started like, as I got more comfortable, I was just telling the story as I saw it, and it became fun. And then I started interacting with some of the moms and the dads and the grandparents, and that was awesome. And then we kind of joked because Lou was always, kind of taking jabs, and he's like, "Is anyone even out there listening?" I'm like, "I'm not sure." I'm like, I could be talking to myself.
So they started,
and then they started, and then some of the people started saying, "I'm like, you know what?" I go, "Let us know where you're calling from, where we're listening from." So they started saying, "Grandma from Portland, Oregon," or so and so, and then. We got one, I think the furthest was Australia.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm worldwide.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm all over the world.
Awesome. It's awesome.
And from there, it just kind of evolved.
They still listen, I feel like, too. Even if they don't watch or listen to every
That's
game,
what's amazing. You see people on there that are names from the past.
Yes.
And that's what's fun because it's like, here's people who have sent their kids here. They entrust their kids to come here and play baseball. I mean, these are top level talents. It's not like you're just sending your kid to play baseball for the summer for fun. This is big time. These kids are trying to get drafted, and obviously we've had a lot of kids drafted. So they invest their sending their kid here to play baseball in the Mohawk Valley. And every parent I've talked to, they just love it. They love the experience. They love it's a family atmosphere. And when you say that, everybody says that. Oh, it's family. It's family. No, it's different. It's different because games end and you come out and you see a parent and they come over and they talk. Oh, you're the guy that I listen to when I'm back home, and then and then you have a couple things to eat and you start developing relationships, and it's fantastic. And the best part is, obviously, I brought my kid here, but the interaction with kids. I mean, you think, because once in a while you think yourself, you know what? These are college kids. They're kids. They're still kids, right?
Yeah.
The way they interact with the kids is absolutely amazing because the kids don't know the difference between a kid who is in college and a major league pro player, and to them they are pro players. And when these guys make it even bigger, they follow them. These kids look up to them, and they're like, it's so cool. I mean, even to hear like my son, he got very involved in the kid, and they just. All the players are so great to him. And then last season we were talking. I mean, he's still trying to understand how the levels of baseball work, And one of his favorite players got drafted. Yeah. And he was kind of bummed because he's like, well, I want him to stay here. Why? Because I'm like, no, you got to be happy for him because he's making it to the majors, and maybe we can go watch him play in the majors. We can kind of follow him around as he gets to the majors. Yeah. And his thing was like, yeah, but I want him to play for the Diamond Dogs, So that's cool. It's cool to see those kind of things. And I know Trav loves it, and his kids love it, and it's just become such a huge family thing. It's
well, it
great.
is. Well, even your daughter now is officially a worker.
She's a worker.
She was actually a worker now, and when she started out, what was she, like 6, 5, 6?
She was coming over playing catch with us.
And Travis's daughter, same thing. They're the future of it. So it's cool to see everybody in there.
It really is.
It is. It's totally a family. So so like I said when we first talked about this book, that we're a family. So like we get so excited when people get married or have kids and all of that stuff, and then when you write books. So tell me about this book. What started you to think about writing a book?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, it goes back, and a lot of people have asked me, like, why the Blue Sox? You're with Mohawk Valley. Why the Blue Sox? Yeah. There's a story to all this.
Okay.
The first time I actually started writing for the school newspaper when I was probably in 6th grade.
Okay.
And I wish I had the article because I had it forever, and then it got lost somewhere along the way. But I wrote an article. We had a school newspaper, And it was the year, I probably could figure it out if I go back and look at baseball stats, but it was the year that the Phillies went all the way to the World Series and won the World Series. The year before, they were in last place. So my story that year was, I can remember the title, it was From Worst to First, the story of the whatever year Phillies. So I wrote this story about the Phillies, and that was kind of, and then I started writing for other outlets throughout the years, covering local sports and high school sports, and I've always had a love for writing. But one of the things I always wanted to do, ever since I was little, I don't know why, I wanted to write a book. It was like,
awesome.
It was like a dream. So I was like, it was always a bucket list item. And then as I started getting a little bit older, I was like, you know what? I'm like, I have a lot of interest. I have a lot of things I'm involved with. Too much stuff I'm involved with.
Sounds like it. Yeah, you told me your schedule.
I have basketball, and I just do a lot of things.
3 kids, not to mention either. You have 3 kids too. They're in everything.
Yeah, they're in everything.
Hockey,
they're in hockey. They're in dance. My daughter started working. My son plays basketball. I coach basketball. I do podcasts. I do all kinds of stuff. So.
And then you wanted to write a book.
And then I wanted to write a book.
No big deal.
No big deal.
No big
So.
Yeah.
I started working for the Utica Blue Sox, believe it or not, when I was 16 years old.
Okay.
Probably 14, but I think it was 16-ish. And back then I was doing ground screw. And then after ground screw, I would come up and do just help out with whatever else was needed. So to me that was cool because I got to hang out with baseball players back then. At the time they were affiliated. The Utica Blue Sox were affiliated with the Boston Red Sox, and then after that it was the Florida Marlins. So one of the things that I thought was always cool is that they'd have a lot of these minor league teams would have their they call them roving hitting instructors. It'd be old timers who would come. Now they were done playing, and now they wanted to get back to the game, so they were hitting instructors. And a lot of these guys had dreams of becoming managers, so they would start at the lowest levels. So a lot of these guys would come through Utica. So like if you know baseball, some of the names are like Jim Rice. He's a Hall of Famer.
So this is going to lose.
This is where I'm going to lose you a little bit.
This is where Tiffany's walking off.
He's not losing. I'm good with it.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going, Pete.
Jim Rice was one of the guys. He was a roving hitting instructor for Boston. And he came through one day, and I remember the owner telling me one day, he's like, "Hey," he goes, "Jim Rice is going to be here." I'm like, "Jim Rice? Like, are you serious?" He's like, "What do you mean he's going to be here?" He goes, "He's one of the hitting instructors for the team that we were playing. I can't remember who was. Oh, it was our team because we were affiliated with the Red Sox." He goes, "He doesn't want to be bothered." He was like, he's known to be kind of a grumpy guy, right? And he goes, "You're kind of in charge." I go, "What do you mean I'm in charge?" He goes, "After you're done with the ground screw," he goes, "you basically walk around with him throughout the night. Whatever he needs, you get it." I was like, okay, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? So I ended up going to the, after I was done, I cleaned up real quick, and I went over to him. I'm like, "Mr. Rice," I go, "my name's Pete. Whatever you need tonight, I'm your guy." And he goes, "You?" I was like, "Yeah, me." He goes, "What are you, my security guard?" Right? And I was like, "Kind of." I go, "Whatever you need." I go, if you need food, if someone's bothering you, tell me and I'll try to take care of it. And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you one thing." He goes, "Keep all these people away from me." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Keep all these people away from me." He goes, "I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to sign any autographs." I was like, "Oh my God, like this guy's mean," right? So throughout the game, like little kids were asking for autographs, and I was like, "Sorry," sir. And I was like, I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, "Sorry guys, Mr. Rice is not signing autographs." It was cool.
I laugh because this trained you from Diamond Dogs because he has been in this situation with people at Diamond Dogs doing the autographs.
It was so cool.
And yes, awesome.
Yeah, it was so cool. So then that kind of then that ended because the Blue Sox ended up losing a team because they were purchased by Cal Ripken Jr. And he moved the team out of Utica. Okay. And then ever since then, Utica's been involved in these collegiate baseball leagues like we're in now. So when I was thinking about, so I had all this Blue Sox history back in my head, and I'm like, you know what, something that would be cool to write about because we're Utica guys, we like Utica and we like and there's so much history in Utica. Like if you look at the guys who have come through the system in Utica and made it to the major leagues, I mean, all kinds of like great players that sometimes people don't even know. Miguel Cabrera played 8 games in Utica. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a Triple Crown winner. Just the names just go on and people don't know about it. Yeah. So then as I was like, you know what, maybe I'll do a book on the history of the Blue Sox. And as I started looking at that, I started taking notes, started doing, looking at articles, and I realized, well, wait, I didn't know that there was a team that won the pennant in 1947, that won the championship. Because the team that everybody always talks about, Roger Kahn was a great baseball writer who wrote a book, and he wrote about Utica. And what happened with him is he wasn't a baseball guy. He wrote this book, and it essentially became famous. he bought the team only to be able to write a book. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to buy a team so he can write a book about what it was like
to own a
team and like what goes on in the season. So that's what he did. He bought the Blue Sox. He bought, and so he buys this team. This is in in the 80s. I can't remember exactly when. And Utica at the time, they weren't affiliated with anybody because it just so happened to be how it fell. And it just so happens that the Utica team goes on and wins the New York Penn League Championship the year that he bought the team. So he has this great story come out of it, you know? And so then there's this national book that's basically written from this great baseball author.
Right.
Because the first book he wrote about was I think it was called The Boys of Summer, which was about the Dodgers.
Okay.
So it was about a Major League Baseball team. So he ends up buying this team to write a story about it, what it's like owning a team, and then they go off and win the championship. And it was crazy. I mean, the team was a bunch of like crazy guys, just a lot of things, a lot of stories behind it. So if you ever get the chance to read that book, I can't remember the name of it. Oh, I think it's called Good Enough to Dream. Yeah, Good Enough to Dream by Roger Kahn.
Okay.
That talks about that team. So then I knew about that team, and I'm like, well, this national writer already wrote a book about this, but what am I going to do? Like, I can't write a book, like a second book about it. So as I started researching, I'm like, wait, what about this 47 team? They won too? They won a championship? We have another championship in Utica that nobody ever talks about? So I started researching it, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, this team had – so the more research I did on it, I started realizing this might be the greatest baseball team that Utica's ever had on the field.
Wow.
And then as I started researching it, I started seeing these names that I knew. Richie Ashburn, who is a baseball Hall of Famer. You know, he passed away, unfortunately. Richie Ashburn. Putsy Caballero was another one. He played in the – they were affiliated with the Philadelphia Phillies. So he played there. Stan Lapata, who was a great catcher for the Phillies, he played there. And then the more I ended up reading about it is like the 1950s. So this happened in 1947, the year that they made this run and won this championship. In 1950, a lot of these guys, they were real young when they came to Utica. A lot of them ended up in the major leagues playing for the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Philadelphia Phillies, the 1950 team, they were called the Whiz Kids, which were all these guys from Utica. So the Whiz Kids that played on the Phillies were Utica guys that played in Utica earlier.
Wow, that's cool.
And they made a run and almost won the World Series. They went up to the National League Championship game. So I'm like, wait a minute, this all ties back to Utica? How cool is this? So then I just started, like, you know, as I started doing research for the book, I started the book, I put the book down, started again. You know, it was a long process. And my daughter, who's 16 now, she kept kind of like poking at me. She's like, when are you going to finish this book? When are you going to finish this book? And I was like, I got to finish this book because she's pushing me. And then the closer I got to the end, the harder it actually became, because now it's like, before it was like I was researching, I was writing, it was fun. And then as it got closer to the end, I'm like, whoa, like this is becoming a reality now. Like I'm not gonna make sure this is good, because now, like, what happens when people read it, you know? And then I started.
You suck.
Yeah, I started like checking and double checking stats and like triple checking things, and it was like I've learned a lot through the process, because like I've checked so many things a million times. Like I've wasted so much time doing it.
Cool.
But now I've learned like the ins and outs of the things to do. So that's kind of the story of where it started. So like, you know, when people say, you know, well, don't you work for the Mohawk Valley Diamond Dogs? I'm like, I do, but this isn't about the Utica Blue Sox team of now. You know, it's about, because even yesterday I was at a craft fair and a lot of people came up and talked to me and they're like, oh, the Utica Blue Sox. I know the Blue Sox. And then they look at it, they're like, oh, the 47 Blue Sox. Isn't there a team now? And I talked about that team. I'm like, it's different. I go, you know, these are collegiate baseball players. But you know, this is where it started. Yeah, this is where it started. And you know, that's the other thing too, is like there will be a book about the Mohawk Valley Diamond Dogs. I can guarantee that. That's coming.
A short video, right?
That's coming.
Yeah. So yes, all right.
That'll be in the works, because I think that's the other thing when you talk about like greatness of things and just like, you know, the stories. There's so many great stories that are not told yet about the Mohawk Valley Diamond Dogs. I mean, and there's like that's where it's become even more exciting with that book, is because there's so many people that love it.
Right.
There's so many players that love it. There's so many player stories to tell, because guys who have made it, guys who maybe haven't made it, and they can tell their story of the struggles. Guys who have just continued to play. I mean, Anthony Guerrera, who's one of the players who played here for us, and he just keeps grinding. He's not going to quit, you know. And he says wherever he ends up, he's going to know that he's put everything into it. And so those are the great stories. And then the great stories about the people in this community who have become a part of the Diamond Dogs, like the Nellis family.
Yeah. Yep.
There's so many people who have done so many things, and I think those stories need to be told. So I look forward to that book too. I think that was going to be cool.
Well, and that's what I was going to circle back on this, because my favorite part that I looked at in here, and I haven't read the whole book yet, because honestly, I don't know anything about baseball. So I'm reading these things, and I'm like,
people read what they like.
Yeah, exactly. So I skimmed through, and I was like, well, I have to know something about this when you come in, because I can't just be like, oh, I just read the covers. So I liked the part at the back, so where you have all of the team.
Yep.
And so researching that, do these people, are they still alive? If they're not alive, did their families know that you wrote this book?
Unfortunately,
about them?
a lot of them have passed away. I tried to get a hold of anybody that I could who was still alive.
Because that's
I ran into some struggles with that, because obviously some people were gone, so there's nothing you can do with those.
Yeah.
But then the other thing too is, like, these guys were old, because 1947 they were playing, so they're in their 80s.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's kind of like, I gotta hurry up. These guys are not gonna be waiting for Pete Pagliaro. So I reached out, once I got information, I started like trying to find people, and I ended up talking to a couple of guys, which that was phenomenal. That was like awesome, because these guys were so willing to talk to me.
That's it.
So I talked to those guys. I actually reached out to the Ball Boys, because I thought I ended up getting their names.
The whole story,
and one of them, one of them,
they'd be younger.
Yeah.
And so
I thought maybe I can get it, because I'm like, they gotta have great stories. One of them was already passed away. And then the other one, I spoke to the wife, and the husband wasn't doing well, so he couldn't really talk and everything. But
so cool.
But the funny story with that too is, I get the names for these two guys, right? And I just by chance they were in the paper, so I ended up finding the names, right? So I researched them and tried to find them. I couldn't really find anything on them. So then I don't know how I ended up getting hold of one of the relatives, right? And someone gave me a contact or something. It's like, you might want to try this person. They might be able to hook you up with somebody else. So that's what I ended up doing. Well, there was a little mix-up, right? So the person that I called, like, I knew one of them was passed away, because I found the obituary, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to call that person and ask for an interview, right?
Right.
So, but if you got one, it'd be really good. I want to tell you, I want that podcast.
So what ended up happening is, the person who gave me the contact, like the numbers got mixed up, names got mixed up. So I ended up calling the woman, right? And I was like, hi, so and so, I'm so and so. I'm writing a book on the Blue Sox. I understand, your husband was one of the Ball Boys. So she never made any sign that, like, he was not here anymore, right? She was like, oh, yes, he did. He's talked about that before. And the way she, like, was talking was like,
he's still alive.
Like, he's right here sitting next to me. Right?
Oh,
so I was like, well, I would love to ask him some questions about, what do you, and she goes to me, like, her best answer. She goes, I would love to ask him a bunch of questions too. I was like, okay, so why don't we just do it, right? What's the problem? And she's like, unfortunately, she's like, he passed away. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
Oh my
and she goes, no. And I felt horrible.
Right.
And she goes, no. She's like, don't feel that. She's like, you know what? It really feels good just to talk to you.
I'm sure
about that.
That's what
And I wish I put that in the book. I didn't put that in the book because I didn't want to, like, make her feel bad.
Yeah.
That would have made her feel good, baby.
But I thought about that. I'm like, you know what? That's kind of a cool story a little bit.
This is because it's living on. Its history is living on by your book right now. The 47 Blue Sox will have forever this memoir now that, and that was the other thing I looked at too. You didn't have an editor.
No, well, Lou edited a little bit.
I was going to say. Okay. And he will
I think
not
he's
let
mad
you
at me
get
because I
away
should have
with
probably put
anything.
that. I don't think I didn't put his name in the book, and I probably should have. To be honest with you, I didn't even think about it.
You publicly just acknowledged him,
I did.
so he's
Yes.
good.
So it is Lou as the editor.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean is, like, editing wise, like, that would be somebody that fact checks, so to speak, because that's nowadays everybody fact checks.
Yeah.
And you did all of it. Like, well, you and Lou did all of it to make sure it's accurate, which is an undertaking in itself. I mean, beyond writing this book.
Yeah,
so,
well, I'll admit, like, I hate mistakes. I'm an auditor, right? So I hate mistakes.
Yeah.
There are two little things in there that are a little,
you look at and
that I know. Once it got reprinted, because I could reprint it, and I reprinted it and it's corrected. But that bugs me because I'm like, man, I don't want anything like that. And it wasn't a mistake. It was just a sentence that was written, and one sentence said something about something, and then the other sentence kind of was contradicting it. But
yeah,
this is why you need to write all these books now. Look at this.
It cut me up for a while. But I was like, I'll get past it. This is my first book, and that's the only thing I've done wrong.
Well, and this is your first book, right? You've never written
a book
this
before.
Is so cool.
No, this has been awesome. I mean, the experience has been the experience of writing it has been fun. I mean, it hasn't been. It was never work,
That's
which
cool,
was fun.
Which is very cool.
A lot of the research I did, a lot of it was available online. And then what I did is I filled in the gaps by going to the Utica Public Library and just getting microfilm and just scanning through things. And like I even noticed like the paper was wrong. Yeah. Like I was putting together the stats, right? And I knew the record because it was 90 and 48. I think that was their final record for the regular season. And so I knew that. I'm like, okay, that's 90 48. I mean, that's wins and losses. It's easy, right? Then I went to a book that I was looking at. It was the Eastern League book, the book written about the Eastern League that said the same thing, 90 and 48. I'm like, okay. And then what I did is I was keeping a log of all of the paper, because I went through every single article from the beginning of the season to like later on to the one awards were given out.
That's awesome.
All the Utica, I went through every single date, wrote down the games, the scores, everything. And then when I added it up, it was off by one. Right? I'm like, I clearly wrote down something wrong. Right.
Yeah.
So again, not knowing,
Auditor.
not knowing
those numbers.
I should have just trusted myself the first time, but I didn't, because you're always like, I probably messed up a number. So I went through it again, right? And it came to the same thing. I'm like, how can this be wrong, right? Crazy. So and then I ended up checking other papers, like other cities, because I wanted to get not just the Utica perspective. I wanted to see what other places were saying about this team. Not a lot of the other places really said much about the Blue Sox. They talked about their team, obviously, but it was cool. It was cool to kind of see, other papers and just cool. Different writers and that kind of stuff. So that was fun.
That's really neat. So, what was your favorite part to write on this book overall? Like, what part to research, or the beginning, or the end, or the people, or
to me it was the end, because obviously I knew the result. I knew what happened, right?
Yeah.
And then as I started doing the games, I started learning about things that happened throughout the season. And like, to me, some of the things that was cool to see, to read about, was some of the promotions that they were doing. And like, because we do that, right?
Yeah. Crazy, right? In 1947, right?
You start looking at this stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat. Like, they gave out, like even today, like I stopped in yesterday. I was on my way home. I've been trying to get this book into many places as I can. So I just ask. I go in and ask, hey, do you want a copy of this book to put in your store?
Which I think you're doing a heck of a job on.
I'm working hard at it.
There are a lot of people that have this book.
I'm working really hard at it.
Yeah, so.
But I walked into yesterday to Bremer's, I think it's called. How do you pronounce it? Bremer's Liquors. And I'm like, so I thought to myself, well, people go into this place to get alcohol, right? Yep. A lot of guys drink alcohol. Yep. A lot of ladies drink alcohol too, right? But mostly guys like sports. Girls like sports too. But so I was like,
a little whiskey, a little
so I was like,
about,
this would be perfect, right? So I walk in and I talked to the guy. I was like, hey, I introduced myself. Yeah. I was like, I wrote this book about the Blue Sox, and the guy was kind of looking at me like, why are you in a liquor store? Like, this doesn't make sense, right?
Because he's drunk.
Right. So he looks at me a little weird, and I was like, well, listen, let me tell you what I'm thinking, right? He goes, yeah. I go, it's perfect. I go, you got people coming in here to buy alcohol. I go, sports fans buy alcohol. I go, that goes together, right? I go, it'd be a perfect holiday gift. Put it on your counter. Yep. I go, I make a little bit off of it. That's what I do. I give them a little break on the price. Yep. I go, sell it for what you like. Keep the profits. Everything. Everybody's happy. Yeah. We all go on and have a merry life, right? And the guy goes to me, well, he goes, I think it's a great idea. He goes, but I can't sell anything in a liquor store that's not liquor related. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, it's got to be either alcohol or it's got to be like alcohol related, like shot glasses or a can.
Really?
And I didn't know that. I was like, all right.
I didn't
and I said to him, I go, well, so I'm thinking to myself, I go,
it talks about drinking.
I go,
right.
Well, I said to him, I'm not sure if this relates. I go, but I actually mentioned Bremer's Liquor in here because back in 47, you guys like gave away a prize to one of the, and he goes, really? I'm like, yeah. I go, I didn't even know you guys were around that long. And he goes, yeah. He goes, we've been around for a long time. And I go, yeah. I go, you like it was one of those things where like they gave away like a tie if you had the first home run, or a pen if you had the first out.
The promos.
Right. It was awesome to see.
Yeah.
And then like the things that they had, the different promotions that they had. Yeah. I had one in here which. Nowadays, you got to be careful what you say, right? Because everybody gets upset over everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's history. Deal with it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So I had something in there, right? And it was about they had a ladies' night.
Oh,
right?
No. Oh, so ladies' night. Always a ladies' night.
So at the time, I thought nothing of it. I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. They have a ladies. Yeah. They had a ladies' night, right? Yep. And what they gave away at ladies' night was irons.
Okay.
Right? So I was like, at first I'm like, I thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, that is cool, right? And then I was like, the more I'm hearing about all this stuff, I'm like, I probably should take that out of there because someone's gonna read this and say,
"Oh no!"
Someone's gonna be like,
"It's like a blender. It's like a blender. You can't give a blender
I was
anymore."
like, well, back in the day, that was okay. Like now, if you do it, people are like, "Well, why are you giving it to the women? Why can't guys can do that too?" I'm like, you're right. We don't do a good job at it probably because we're terrible.
Right.
But so I took it out because I was afraid of like
being like
that's
what a
politically
mistake.
correct
Story. Now we know that story.
No,
this
it
is
should have
great.
stayed.
You fear the political correctness. You're like,
No,
you should do it. You should do an unedited, like the
maybe I'll
our
do the unedited version.
That includes the irons in it. But
so those
irons
are cool.
expensive,
So those are cool things. Yeah, so I said they were expensive back in the day.
That is a good giveaway.
But yeah, so the promotions were cool, and then as I get closer and closer, like. I felt like I was getting anxious because I'm like, I know the outcome, but like, I never read how it ended. Yeah. Like I always knew that they won the championship, but I never knew how it happened because I didn't want to know. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna know when I get there. Yeah. So I could have easily went to the articles and read and figured it out. Right. But I'm like, did they win it in 4 games? Was it a best of 7? Yeah. Was it a best of 3? Yep. I had no idea. And it was a 2-game series basically. Yep. And the first series. They were on the brink of losing. I mean, they were down 3-2 in the series, and then they ended up winning the game and winning the series 4-2. Awesome. And then in the championship game, and not to spoil it, but they go to a 7. It goes to a 7th game, which is so cool. Which is cool because
you can't even write that. No pun intended. No. You can't write that.
It's like it was perfect, and and to me, it's like when like yesterday when I was in and was hearing from people, and you don't get a lot of people who were at these games because I mean they're old. These folks are old now. Yeah. But a lot of these folks come back and they say, "Oh yeah, I remember the Blue Sox. I remember I wasn't around until 40-17." And I joked yesterday, I was like, "Yeah, neither was I." I go, but I wrote a book about it, right? And there was a lady yesterday who, sometimes you look back and you wish you did things, and you know how it is. You meet somebody, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I got their number." Yeah. Yep. So. It was a craft fair, right? Yeah. I was the only like guy type thing there, because it was like
you must have sold a lot of books.
Well, the only reason I went,
they had those blenders and irons.
Blenders and
craft fair. Yeah.
So I'm looking at my schedule, and with his hockey and stuff, like normally his hockey is Saturday and Sunday games, right? So it's these craft fairs are going on now, and like they're all day, right? I'm like, I can't do it. So it just happened to be that this one fell on a Saturday where he didn't have a game on Saturday, he had a game on Sunday. Yeah. And it happened to be that it was my daughter's dance studio who was they were putting on the craft fair, and it's basically what they do. All the money raised from the craft fair, the vendors keep their money obviously, but the money that goes into getting a booth and whatever they food that they sell goes back to the competition team. So you're helping the kids, right? Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? Even if I lose my money for my table, it's a donation for help the kids, right?
I'm even paying anyway.
It's a win-win, right? And to be a little, I'm not going to lie. I said, well, if it's a craft fair done by the dance studio, all the moms and dads from the dance studio who know me will probably stop in the craft fair and they'll feel bad for me sitting there and I might sell a book, right? So that was my thought, right? Yep. Yeah. The funny thing is, like most of my sales were not those people because they already bought books online.
Right. Like me, if we saw it on Amazon, we're like, oh, we gotta get it on Amazon.
So I'm like in my head thinking like, yeah, you know what? If I add up all these people who kind of know me and probably will come in here, I probably can sell this many books. Yeah. No, it was people who came in and be like, oh wow, the Utica Blue Sox, and I'm like, and they start talking to me about it, and they're like, Peter Pagliaro, and they're like, wait, is that you? I'm like, that is me, right? And they're like, you're the author? I'm like,
can you sign this for me?
Right. Well, that's what I keep telling them. Like author Pete Pagliaro.
Which feels weird, like because when and they're like, can you sign it for me? I'm like, sure. And then I'm asking them like, do you want me to personalize it? And they're like, that'd be great, So this woman came up to me, right? And this is like one of my favorite stories. I hope I have many more of these because it was awesome. So again, when you go to a craft fair, what is it? It's Christmas decorations. It's you had Mary Kay there selling stuff. You had the Tupperware folks selling stuff. A lot of wreaths, like not a lot of really guy stuff. I mean, maybe a couple mugs here and there.
And blenders.
Blenders. Irons.
Irons. Yep.
So this grandmother is looking at a couple things, and she's there with her clearly grandkids, right? And their daughter was there too, which I found out later. But the grandkids are bored, right? So the granddaughter is kind of lingering with grandma, looking at the cool little trinkets and stuff. The boy's kind of looks at a couple things, and he's like, this is kind of getting boring, right? So he starts like veering closer to me, right? And the book catches his eye because it's baseball, right?
Yeah.
And he starts looking over, and I say to him, I go, hey, bud, what's going on? And he's like, nothing. And I'm like, enjoying the craft fair? He's like, no. And I'm like, you like baseball? He's like, kind of, right? And I didn't get a good, get a good vibe from him. So I was like, and then Grandma called him back because he was getting too far away, right? So then finally Grandma makes her way to my area, right? And she goes, oh, the Utica Blue Sox. She's like, I remember the Blue Sox. And so we start talking a little bit about just memories of the Blue Sox, not 40-17 team, but Blue Sox stuff, general, right? Yeah. She's like, yeah, I remember going to games and this and that. And she goes, I have an uncle who loves the Blue Sox, and he would love a book. He would love this book. I go, it'd be a great Christmas gift, right? So she goes, I'll come back. I'm like, she's not coming back, right? So I was like, I go, make sure you come back. I go,
heard that 100 times.
So I even said to her, I'm like, maybe I go, I'll give you a show special, if you come back. So I'm like, I had to have something to kind of get her to come back, right? So she walks around, comes back, and she comes back around. She's lingering, right? And then she comes back to the table, and she goes, you know what? She goes, I'm going to take you up on your offer of your show special. I was like, oh, great. I don't have a show special. But I'm going to have to think of one pretty quickly, right? So I gave her I gave her a deal on the price, right? Yeah. It was sold for $14.99. I gave her a little cut on the price. So she goes, you know what? She's like, I'm going to take two. I was like, oh, that's cool. She goes, I'm going to take one for myself, and I'm going to take one for my uncle. And I'm like, okay. So I get the books. I go, do you want me to sign them? And she goes, would you? I'm like, sure, right? So I sign them, right? I go, do you want me to personalize them? She goes, could you? I was like, yeah, of course.
But it's going to be the full price.
She goes,
full price.
So the first one,
she'll discount is off.
Yeah. So she goes to the first one. She goes, can you make it to Jimmy? Like, I think his name was Jimmy. That was her uncle. Yeah. And she gave me a saying. She goes, can you write, I know you love baseball, right? So I put, I know you love baseball, go Utica Blue Sox. She thought that was the greatest thing. So then I signed it to her, right? And I said, thank you. Thanks for stopping by. Great meeting you. Yep. I'm glad you're a baseball fan. Go Blue Sox. She goes, oh, my God, I'm so happy that you did this. Right? And then I said, I looked at the kid, because the kid's looking at the book who is this guy? And people around are starting to look is this guy famous or something? So the kid's looking at the book.
You will be after this podcast.
Yeah. So he starts looking at the book, right? So I said to him, I go, I wish I remember his name now. I can't remember his name. I knew it yesterday. And I go to him.
And you're the stats guy?
Yeah.
It just scares me.
There's too many people. That's what it is.
Too many people.
So many people. He knows.
So I go to the kid. I go, hey, bud. I go, so do you like baseball? He goes, yeah, kind of. And I go, do you like reading? He goes, oh, yeah, I like reading. I go, I'm going to make a deal with you. And he goes, okay. I go, I'm going to give you this book, right? I go, I want you to read it. I go, you got to promise me you read it. And he goes, okay. I go, when you read it, I go, the only way I'm going to know that you really read it, though, I go, on the back of this book is some information on how you can get a hold of me. I go, you got to send me your thoughts on the book. Awesome. The grandmother thought was the greatest thing ever. It was the coolest thing. So I gave this kid a book. I personalized it to him. I thought that was the end, right? I thought that was it, right? The grandma was like, can we take a picture with you? I was like, oh, sure.
Awesome.
Grandma comes over, the lady on the other booth, right? She goes, you want me to take the picture for you? She's like, sure. So we take a picture with the whole family, right? She calls her daughter in, take a picture with the daughter, right? I'm like, wow, this is huge. The grandson takes a picture with me, just me and him, right? So I'm like, all right, this is cool. This is fun. Yep. She goes, wait, I want a picture just myself with him.
Oh, jeez.
Like, oh, God.
This is the coolest thing.
It's awesome.
It was awesome.
It is.
Are we going to be able to talk to him after
Well,
this?
that's why I'm glad I got him now. I'm listening, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm so glad you came for the little people still.
And that's the thing. It's like, if I don't sell one book, and that's the only book that I sold, it was all worth it, because
awesome.
it was just awesome. And then there was another guy who came over, and his dad was actually went to the 47 Blue Sox games. Awesome. He's older, not doing well. You bought him a book, and he said, he's going to love this. And I go, I would love to talk to him about. And he goes, unfortunately, he's not at that point where he can have that conversation. I go, well, just send him my best. And then he had such great stories that he talked about, scouts in the area, and he gave me a story about a guy who, the guy played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. His name was Taluki. He was a pitcher. It was his favorite pitcher ever. There was a scout in Utica that was scouted for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So he ended up getting locker room passes for this kid. This kid's in the locker room, and there's all these amazing pirate players. But he loves this guy who's really not that big of a star, and so he turns to the guy for an autograph, and then basically the guy tells him basically, "Scram, kid, get out of here." Yeah. And then Manny Sanguine was the catcher, comes over, puts his arm around them, and is like, just like treated them like gold. And
there's always always is a few that will take the time, and then
it's cool. So
some that can be.
But those are like the great stories that, like, you know, baseball brings. Like, you know, I think no other sport. I mean, like I tell you, there's so many sports that I'm involved with. I mean, hockey. I love hockey now. There's
another podcast
I'm
for
a
that,
big
by the way. Side little sidebar.
I saw that one. I mean, hockey's great. I love basketball. Yeah. But, like, the stories that come out of baseball are just different because, like, I always look at it, like, baseball connects people. It connects society. Like, I mean, you hear it all the time now. Oh, baseball is a dying sport. No, it's not. It's not a dying sport. Yep. People don't have the attention span anymore to watch baseball, so they watch it in smaller increments. Yep. But what did people always do? Dad and moms are taking kids to the games. Yep. They have a hot dog. It's more than a game. It's a family thing that you do, and that's never going to go away. It's part of America. It's part of who we are. So yeah, you know what? The game might be slower. The game might not be what, you know, the new generation loves because it's so fast.
Banana thing. Have you seen that banana?
I hate it.
Bananagrams, is it called?
The Savannah bananas. Yeah, Lou loves it. Lou loves it.
He does.
He would.
Oh yeah,
he bought the hat, and I learned a little bit about it because he told me about it. He came in with a Savannah banana hat during the game. Right?
Did he really? One of our games, he did.
Yeah, he had a banana, and he goes, "I got this new hat." And he goes, "I love it. The logo is great. The logo is phenomenal. Yeah. The marketing is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
The guy wears a yellow suit, looks like a banana, right? Great.
Well, and the players act like a bunch of bananas.
They do.
Yeah.
And I said to Lou, he goes, "I love it." And I'm like, so I had to research it, right?
Yeah.
So I looked into it, and I'm like, wait a minute. They got a first baseman on first base. He's on stilts. Yeah. Right. I'm like, this isn't no. To me, like, so the Harlem Globetrotters, right?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I'm a baseball basketball lover. I watch so much basketball. I coach basketball. Love the game. When I get free tickets to those things, I go because, like, I want to support everything. Yeah. I don't like going to those things because, to me, that's not basketball. It's the entertainment. If
it's entertainment.
As long as you go in for the entertainment and you know that, it's fine. But it's not a basketball game. Yep. So I started looking at the Savannah Banana stuff. I'm like, so me and Lou got an argument. I go, it's not baseball. Right?
I love their arguments also, by the way. That's the best.
But then he told me, I guess there's like two teams, though. There's like the entertainment team, and then there's like the real team.
The real team.
I haven't heard
about like,
either.
Okay, that's the truth.
I don't know.
But he's like, I go, listen. We better not be like, I'm all about promotions and stuff, and you want to put a guy in stilts in Little Falls, that's fine. But you better not put a guy in first base who's actually a player playing on stilts at first base, because I'm gonna tell you how it is on the air.
Yeah.
Right? this is
this is gonna be so much fun.
Listen, if Mr. First Baseman on stilts is playing first base, you want to put him on first base, Trav?
Yeah.
Go ahead. He better make the play. Because if he doesn't make the play, I don't want to hear he's on stilts. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. It's true. It's true.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Amazing.
So that's kind of where this all came from, and it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. The stories have been fun. Talking to the old players was phenomenal because
that's so
like
cool.
One of the guys in here talks about the field was like that. That's what the field in Utica was notorious for being bad because of the lights.
I was gonna say, it wasn't renovated obviously at that point. Was it one of their good points or one?
Well,
of their...
it wasn't the field you see now. So where the Blue Sox play now, that's a totally different field. The field used to be, if you come off the thruway exit 31. The Red Roof Inn is where the field sat.
Wow.
So
wow.
When the after the Phillies left, because that was one of the things that was kind of the Phillies always promised to build them a new stadium, to do renovations to the stadium. They never did. They never fulfilled that. Yeah. So once they left, then things started happening. They the thruway came through at the time, wasn't there. They bought that land, made it and got rid of the field basically.
Wow.
But that field, because it was so close to the canal, one, the lights were terrible. Two, the benches were like splinters. Yeah. Third, the fog would roll in off of the water, and you couldn't see home plate. It was just
that'd be so cool.
Yeah. So one of the players, when I talked to him, right, he was so like forthcoming about everything. He was just loved. You can tell he just wanted to talk, and it was awesome, so cool. Right? So I started talking to him, and he goes, and he said it with the straightest. I mean, I didn't see his face because we weren't face to face, but like he said it, I believed him. He goes, the girl, and I have it in the book and in his interview. The girls were beautiful or something like that, right? He said the girls were beautiful. And then he goes, because the lights were so bad. Right? And I'm like, oh, that's mean. I'm like, that's kind of mean.
And
That's
you
fantastic.
kept
I kept that one.
You kept the irons.
You took the irons off, but I put that
took
one
the
in.
irons
That
out
was
and put
good,
that
though.
in.
That's
Oh
a
my
good
god.
singer.
That was a good one.
That is a good
Pete,
singer.
I don't know. Your decision making on
I know.
editorial here is.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, your editor, Lou,
Apparently,
should have
yeah.
caught that,
Apparently
I guess.
didn't,
Or
yeah.
he must have liked that
Let
one,
that
though, too.
one slide.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are the cool stories that you hear from these guys. And then the same guy, I mean, sad story, because I every guy I talked to, I'd asked, do you have anything from that era that you kept?
Yeah.
And none of them did. He said to me, he goes, I had so much stuff from the Utica Blue Sox that I kept, but Katrina came through. He lived in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
Lost
it.
everything.
So
Lost. He
now
goes, I lost
it.
so many things. He goes, I wish that I had. He goes, I had all these little trinkets of memories and stuff. And he goes, and they're all gone. And I'm like,
Too bad.
it was terrible. It broke my heart a little bit.
Well, I love the fact that it is circling back to what it used to be, a new version of it, though, in I can hold it up now. So in 2022, so it is called the 1947 Utica Blue Sox, a baseball season to remember by Peter Pagliaro, who's here in studio today. And I can't thank you enough for being here today.
It's been
awesome.
so
This
much. I
is
mean,
great.
honestly, I can talk about baseball forever.
I
can
did,
talk about,
and that's
why I'm
best
giving
thing.
the wrap it up.
Well,
Yeah,
and,
I understand.
Editors, whatever, we can talk all the time.
sure.
I'll have you on again. I'll have you and Lou on. How's that? And then
Oh
go back
my
and
God,
forth.
that
It'll
would
be
be
a
so
nice
much fun.
reunion episode.
They might as well just walk out of the studio.
Oh yeah, no, I want that.
It's so much fun, but either way, I couldn't be prouder of you. Is that the word,
Thank
prouder?
you.
Yes,
Prouder.
that works.
Prouder of you and for doing this, and I'll have to get with you.
And
too,
it's
we'll-
available on Amazon.
On
Is
Amazon.
it?
Yeah, go
Hard-
on Amazon. Just type in 1947 Utica Blue Sox. It'll come up.
All right.
Awesome. That's what I did, and I was so happy to. And I'm trying to get your numbers up on Amazon, so you're number one.
So you're buying more books or what?
Well, is that how it works? I don't know how you get ranked. You get ranked on Amazon,
more
though.
you
Like
buy-
the more you sell and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
So
you do.
So go online, buy this great Christmas present stocking stuffer. So
It's a great stocking
thank you
stuffer.
again so
Awesome.
much, Pete.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
It has been a lot of fun. So
All right.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.